Well, hi there. I'm Larry Totzke, and this is View from the Pew. I'm here today with my friend Cris Wright, and most people around Oak Hills Church know Cris from her involvement in a variety of ministries. But Cris, you've been involved in a ministry recently that has to do with seeing when and how we can meet together again as a church. And how's that been going?
Good. The worship task force, I was asked to become a part because of my nursing background. And I very eagerly said yes, I'd love to be a part of that. So as we look towards services through the summer in an outdoor environment, there was a lot of planning to have those services happen and to keep people safe. So now as we're thinking of coming indoors as the weather changes, there's a whole nother level of security and safety measures that we need to instill. And so it's been an exciting process. It's been a prayerful process. It's been a very detailed process to make sure that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and the doors are open so that people can be safe when they come in.
Cool. And why were you asked to be part of this task force?
Well, just with medical background knowledge and to make sure that there's safety in what we're doing, that we're following the CDC guidelines, that we're following all the parameters that need to be in place so that people can come to church and know that they're safe and that things have been thought out and that they can come and worship as the family of God without worrying about exposure to the COVID virus and keeping everyone safe.
And I guess we even had to upgrade our air circulation system some in the church to even make the environment safer.
Correct, because our sanctuary is fairly large, but really for the number of people, it's kind of contained space. We can't open windows. We can only open so many doors for ventilation, and so they're doing 4 air filtration machines that will be operating within the sanctuary. So that will be filtering actively the air while people are gathering for worship.
Wow. I guess we have to wait till those machines come before we can proceed any farther, right?
Correct. And there will be a whole process as it'll be the same just like outdoor services. People will have reservations because we can only accommodate so many people.
Right.
When you come to the double doors to enter, you will have a thermometer scan of your forehead, make sure you don't have a fever. We'll ask people to sanitize their hands before they go into the sanctuary. There won't be bulletins. Everything will be up on a slide. Same thing, there won't be hymnals, there won't be Bibles, because we don't want that contact transmission potential.
But there will be gathering, right?
Yes, there will be gathering.
People
can be together.
Yes, again.
Yes,
Yeah.
Exactly.
And hopefully this will all happen sometime around the middle of December if everything continues to proceed as we hope.
We hope, yes, in time for Christmas and the holidays. It would be delightful.
Right.
Yes.
But today, I wanted to talk with you about the message that we heard this past Sunday on Jesus calling his first disciples. And it's a passage in Matthew chapter 4, verses 18 to 20 or something like that. And this is where Jesus encountered some disciples, some fishermen on the shore. And he called them and said, would you like to follow me? And they said yes. And that leads me to a question that I've thought about, thinking about that passage over the years. And I understand from reading a little bit more in other books of the Bible and in the Gospels that Jesus may have encountered these men before, or they maybe had encountered him before during his early ministry. So it wasn't like he just walked up to them without any kind of introduction and said, follow me. I don't know that anyone would do that. But it made me think, what would it take if someone like Jesus came up and said, follow me? And I ask you to think about that a little bit. And what kind of thoughts did you have about how you would respond to something like that?
Yeah, I was thinking about the fishermen who are in their occupation, fishing, casting their net on the seas. This is what they've done day in and day out. Obviously, the Andrew and Simon Peter had known of Christ's prior to this day when he's walking on the shore. So I just put myself in the place of the fisherman, that here is this well-renowned rabbi who does these in-depth teachings and healings, who's standing on the shore, who obviously they recognize. And he looks into their eyes, and in my mind, looks into their souls and says, come, follow me. And you think, here is God incarnate looking at you, saying, just like Jeremy said in his sermon, you matter, you're important, I see you, come follow me. And in the world, you would think these men are losing everything.
Yeah.
They're losing their occupation, they're leaving their families, they won't have income. How can they possibly leave that all behind and follow Christ? And yet, in what really matters, in the eternal values, they've gained everything. Right. They've gained being able to walk with God on earth and figure out how to live life. And in that would be, wow. I mean, who would want to pass up an opportunity like that? Yeah.
I'm not so sure. I'm
well,
initially
yeah,
I might.
And we're all given that same invitation.
Right.
So yeah, do we pick up that invitation or do we leave it at the table?
I know in my life, I had quite a few years of experiencing who Jesus was through going to church, and on a regular basis. But it wasn't until my early 20s when I made this decision that I wanted to really, truly follow Jesus. And then when I did, it was like I'm all in. It was, I had decided that the Bible was God's word, and that Jesus was God, and that Jesus was worth following, so I'm in. But it took me a while to make that decision. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, how was it for you? How did you make that decision, and what was it like during the first part of being a follower?
Yeah, I was raised, went to Sunday school in a Presbyterian church in Peoria, Illinois, and had a very loving family. Was baptized when I was, I think, 11. I had my first Bible. And then went off to college, and life was great, and I had faith, but it was kind of a peripheral, out there, kind of I'm aware, but it wasn't really a daily journey for me. And then I got married, and then I think I shared at a women's retreat. I had difficulty with my daughter's pregnancy and went into preterm labor. And when life hands you situations where you have no control, I think it was at that point that I just shed a silent tear and said, God, you're in control, I'm not. And so as the storms of life raged, I realized that my rock and my foundation really became more important to me and more important to follow than kind of this peripheral kind of entity that I had because I felt like I was I think I had said even at the retreat, I was kind of like the captain of my ship, and things were great, but that was on flat seas, and so, so that's when I turned the wheel over to God and said, you're in control, and do with my life what you will. And I think, a lot of being raised in a Presbyterian faith and background, I think that kind of altered what I chose as a career, because I really wanted to be an instrument, a vessel, if you will, of God's love. And I mean, you can do that in any occupation. Right. I chose nursing. Which was a very full career and a wonderful, wonderful opportunity.
And nursing's a very hands-on career. You're engaged with individuals' lives during times in their lives where things aren't going so great. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. Right.
And a real opportunity to witness. And I was blessed to work with a lot of really strong religious nurses at my side. It became a wonderful way to serve God.
Wow.
And like I said, I mean, any occupation you can serve.
But nursing is a great one.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, speaking of serving, and we have this fishing motif that's presented to us in this message. I was thinking about fishing in Jesus' time, and when they fished that way, they used nets, right? They didn't have a line and a rod. catching one fish at a time. They were catching fish in multiple quantities with nets. But when they did that, they had to take whatever they caught, right?
Each and everything in
Yeah,
that net was
right,
theirs, yes.
yeah. And you and your husband have had some experience fishing. So talk about what it means to you to fish with a net, and how we might translate that into maybe being fishers of people.
Yeah. Well, nets are fully gathering. When you cast them out in the waters, you are pulling everything in. As opposed to, my husband and I do a lot of salmon fishing, so you have a single line with a definite bait, with a definite goal of catching one specific fish. So if we look at the metaphor of fishing for men, this is casting out the love of God to all people and gathering them all in that safety net of his love. And it's not up to us to determine what fish we're going to catch.
Wow. Yeah.
Our main mission is to cast that net out. And there will be, if you continue the metaphor that you're casting the nets into the depths of the darkness, if you will, of the sea, and then you're pulling them up to the light. And there will be fish that will say, well, we won't anthropomorphize, but there will be fish that, come into the light and want to stay in the light,
Right.
and there are those that are going to jump back into the darkness, that they just don't want any part of it.
Right. And when you cast that net, you don't get all of the fish that are in the river or the ocean.
No.
You
no.
just get certain fish.
Right.
They're the ones that happen to be at the net at the time. And I kind of think that's God's spirit in interacting with people. When you think about, we are told to cast our nets widely as a church and as individuals, to be willing to share the gospel with people in some way, shape, or form. And we don't necessarily know who's out there and who will swim into our proverbial net.
Exactly.
But we need to take whoever that is, and we need to allow them to, through our lives, experience what being a follower of Jesus is all about.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And to draw them into that family of God so that they continue to grow and thrive and be healthy and be able to follow him also.
And I think here at Oak Hills, we have a wonderful family of God to draw people into.
I agree.
It was one of the things that when Sylvia and I first started to come here to Oak Hills, we noticed how friendly and welcoming this church family is.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really neat to be able to come into a family like that.
And just that contact when people are new and come through the door,
Mm-hmm.
and that whole ability of people to greet them, to see them through the next weeks that they attend, to help them become involved at whatever level they want to. I think that's been huge.
Yeah.
And the community outreach through the Easter egg hunt and through various community projects has drawn in a lot of people that otherwise might just bypass on Thiessen Road and never come through our doors.
Yeah. One of my passions is to see us even get more involved in that way. And I'm starting to gather together a couple of folks from our church to talk about more ways that we can do that. How can we engage people in the community, people in our families, people through our website and through our Facebook page? How can we engage people who might be swimming in the water and come into our net and experience what you said, being brought up out of the depths of darkness into the light of salvation? That's something that gets me excited.
Yeah. And if the metaphor of fishing also, when you cast the net, it is those fish that are close to you.
Yes.
So it's those that are swimming in the same stream with you. It's the people you work with, the people you shop with, the people you travel on the road with. It's like those in your community are the ones that you can cast your net.
Right.
And again, I find comfort in the fact that, as Jeremy said in his sermon, as he says, walk with me, journey with me, I will make you fishers of men.
Right.
That transformation, that ability, that skill level, if you will, or that Holy Spirit that can go out from you, it's just your willingness to be there, to cast a net.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that it's his everlasting net of love that you're casting out on people. And so if they, I don't know, I'm sure we've all had instances where you reach out to someone and they kind of lambaste you for, even talking to them about it. And it's
Right.
kind of like, well,
Yeah.
God's love is bigger than that.
Right.
So
Right.
keep casting the net.
Yes. Keep casting the net.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity this week to reconnect with a man and his wife that I haven't had contact with for about, maybe 10, 12 years. But back in Central Ohio, we were involved in a church planting seminar together. And what his goal was from that seminar was to take the gospel into low-income apartment complexes in a town of Ashland, Ohio, which is about halfway between Columbus and Cleveland along Interstate 70, and it's sort of a Rust Belt city. And there are quite a number of low-income apartment complexes in that area, many of them drug-infested. And Nathan and his wife decided that was going to be their waters for fishing.
Wow.
Yeah, really unusual. And over the last 10 or 12 years, they, along with others who have come alongside them, have been pretty successful in starting small churches in these kinds of apartment complexes in Ohio and up in Michigan and over in Illinois. And one of the men who's part of their network and who pastors, I guess, a couple of these churches is an ex-drug pusher.
Wow.
Yeah, and this guy's no one to mess with. I mean, he did this to make a living, and he was good at it. But then he realized that what he was doing was not what God wanted, and through Nathan's endeavors, he came to be a follower of Christ, and now he uses his net to fish, and has really had a great ministry in some of these apartment complexes. And I thought, wow, that's not for me. I'm not geared to have that kind of a ministry, but some people are. And it's really cool to see how God uses different people in different settings to cast their nets and to draw people into his kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you think of the deepest, darkest depths.
Oh yeah.
Which so many times in a human realm we think, that's so far beyond being able to be saved, and yet God reaches through people, much like him, who has lived in that depth. And what a huge witness that is.
It really is.
To all of those people,
Yeah.
probably, that live in the same situations.
And so many of those people are in those situations for all kinds of different reasons. Some of them lost their jobs and turned to drugs because they needed something to help them get through. Mm-hmm. And others didn't really make it in school or in high school, and they ended up in a drug situation, and they just desperately wanted to get out but didn't know how. And these folks have used what the skills God has given them to help provide a way out of the darkness into the light.
Mm-hmm.
So
tremendous ministry.
Really is.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah. So, anything else that you've collected from this message and passage that we had before us?
I think just the biggest message too, that that power of people that have been disciples who have followed their faith, be it family, parents, church families, and how important that is, that we can come together and support one another. Because not only are we gathered in the net of God's love, but then we're living life through the river streams of life. And how do we go about supporting one another? And I think that's huge. So very thankful for Oak Hills and its church family and support, and that Jeremy said in his sermon that basically we are all called to a bigger purpose outside ourselves, which is that mission to spread his love, and that to become like Christ, we need to spend more time just reading the Bible, reading the Gospels, seeing how Christ lived his life, how he engaged with other people, how he interacted, and what message he had for the world, so that we all together can learn together to be a little more reflection of Christ and to kind of be his net of love to the world.
In the words of a lot of people these days, we're not in this alone.
Right. We're all in it together.
We're all in it together, right, yeah. And this desire to serve God is especially true. So, well, Cris, it's been great talking with you today.
Great talking with you, Larry.
And thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
We'll do it again sometime.
Let's do it.
All right.